Noel. Welcome to episode 6 of the Enduro Bureau Podcast. I'm here with my cohorts in podcasting, Courtney and Jared. Guys, what's shaking?
How's it going?
Hello, my booty.
Your
That's
booty?
it.
Yeah, for me, it's more like the old Homer Simpson or Norm from Cheers, all 4 cheeks and a couple of chins, you know?
Well, that was quick.
Yeah. It's a oldie but a goodie. So what's new with you guys this week?
Oh, hammering down on race series prep. And we're like a month this week pretty much away from our first race in Brooks. So just
That's
coming
amazing.
up fast. So just really getting all that stuff dialed in before it comes.
Right on. Lots of series sponsors announcements happening that I see.
Yes, you have. So those are all being released this week, and we're pretty excited to share them all the way up from our bronze to gold sponsors.
Excellent. I love it. Well, hey, yet again, we seem to have somehow, I don't know why she agreed to come on, but we seem to have secured a pretty amazing guest. Our guest today is kind of, when you think about the epitome of multidisciplinary motocross or motorcycle racing, dirt bike racing, off-road, this is someone who would absolutely spring to mind. 6 times AMA Endurocross champion, 3-time Canadian off-road champ, 3-time Western Canadian motocross champ, 6-time ISDE gold medal winner, and the first ever gold medal winner for the Canadian women. Welcome, Shelby Turner. Hey. We're very excited.
Welcome.
Gotta add it. The GNCC winner.
Yeah.
Yes, and GNCC winner like just last weekend.
So stoked.
That's got to be history. History made.
Yeah. I think we definitely made a little bit of history, but that was a big one for me. That might be on the top list of my career highlights now. Kind of something I'm not sure if I ever really expected or thought I could win. WXC GNCC, the field is just so stacked and it's so deep, and every girl that I'm racing is just decorated athletes and have been there a while, and it was a pretty exciting day.
No
That is
doubt.
rad.
You've
And
been really pushing the pace to try to get that, and it was pretty cool to see you get it. What do you think really separated from a third place or a second place to winning that last weekend?
It was definitely a track condition thing. The track was probably one of the gnarliest mud races I have ever raced in my entire life. It was the difference for me, I honestly think, was I had some really, really good lines. I was very patient and just rolled my way through the track. I wasn't trying to force anything. I wasn't trying to get to the lead, get out front. I was just kind of hanging back there. First lap, on paper, it looks like I led all 3 laps from start to finish, but that really wasn't the case. I kind of went out there first lap, not a great start. Somebody false started beside me, and it kind of threw me off, and then the flag went, and I was kind of a little bit behind. I think I kind of went into the woods around 6th position, and from there, right away, I just kind of made 2 quick passes through the mud holes, just staying out of them, and kind of made my way around, and I was kind of sitting in that 4th place, and I could see Corey ahead of me. I knew Rachel Archer was ahead of me. I had one of the newer racers in front of me into the class, and I was just kind of like, all right, we can hang here for a little bit. And then Rachel Archer just swamped her bike in like the 2nd big mud hole, and it didn't even really look that deep. So we went by, and then it was just kind of Corey, another girl, and then me, and I was just kind of cruising along, and we were just making some good lines. The track, they had bulldozed it to try and push some of that mud off because it was just so swampy, and then we had a perfect day, so it started to tack up, so that clay became like 1,000 pounds. So they tried to like plow the quad ruts out and plow off that first layer of just absolute terrible mess of dirt, and so it actually made the track really, really sketchy because they're filling in blind holes, right? So you're coming down straightaways and you can't see these potholes and stuff, and the roots are everywhere, and then you have the added mud holes kind of all over the place, and the track looks absolutely nothing like when we walked it. So you're just kind of out there. I'm like, I'm good back here. I'll just hang out. Jocelyn Barnes came up the inside of me and just absolutely passed me, just sending it through a couple of these mud holes. And I was like, oof, that's kind of risky. Like, I don't want to do that. So then the girl in front of me finally made a mistake. I was behind Corey. Corey fell. I got ahead of Corey. Jocelyn fell like 30 seconds later. I got ahead of Jocelyn. And I was just kind of out front. I led from about the 4 mile to the 8 mile. And right after the 8 mile mud hole, there was kind of like this wide open section. And Jocelyn and Corey right away just clipped by me. I kind of latched onto them and I was like, all right, like I can run this pace. This is good. Like third place, like we'll just hang here, see what happens, and let them kind of get through the gnarly track first. Corey and Rachel ended up crashing, getting stuck in the mud, sliding out, whatever. So I rolled through, first place through the timing score. And you kind of go out, you do about 3 miles, you kind of come back very close to the start line. And I've been down here with, the Dupuis family and Tom Brodvix, and they come running out of the woods with a set of goggles. And it's kind of one of those races that I don't know how many tear offs I pulled. So, I stopped for goggles. Rachel Archer went by and I was like, all right, that's good. I know I'm in second now. So I jumped in behind her and she was a little bit ahead and I actually ended up catching up to her. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I kind of caught up to her. I can ride her pace. Like, I was like, I'll just follow her through the lines. I know she walks the course with Stu Baylor and stuff. So she's got some lines and she's the fast one in the class. She's got the number 1 plate. So I was like, this is a good spot for me. So I kind of hung behind her for the whole second lap. And then just before the finish again, she kind of swamped her bike out in a mud hole. I just went by. And then third lap, obviously, it's kind of more of a privateer program for me. Enduro engineering helps me, but they weren't out on the course. So I was like kind of white knuckling that last lap. I knew I was out front. I really wanted to get that win. And the course was it was forever changing. The mud holes, you just didn't know if they were deep, if the rut you were in was a good rut, if it was a bad rut. My MO for the day was like, if I want to go inside, I went outside. Like if you naturally wanted to go into a tight line, that was probably not the place to be. So I was just really being just careful, I would say, like very, very cautious. I honestly probably only fell once or twice the whole day. I was just very smooth, solid, clean. And yeah, I got stuck in the very, very last mud hole. It's literally in the final corner before you come into the finish line, whatever's. And I was stuck and my front tire kind of got cross-rutted. And I was trying to get my front tire back in straight so I could just go straight out of the hole. And Jocelyn Barnes' dad came running out and lifted my tire and pulled me out of the mud hole so fast I hardly even knew it was happening.
Oh, wow.
And then obviously I rolled through the thing in first, and I was very, very happy. I was sweating bullets when I was stuck there. I was like, oh no, Goodish or Archer's gonna come around the corner and pass me right
Right
here,
at the end,
like 15 feet from the finish line.
to the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. After all that work of I was just a very patient ride. I can't say I really was doing anything crazy. I was just, I come from more of a hard enduro, more tricky conditions, and I was just patient, and it really paid off, and I was very, very happy.
It was
Wow.
amazing. Like watching the afternoon race live on YouTube and looking at the course, and I'm sure like the drones were really good, but I'm sure it just didn't do justice. Well, and I guess I know it didn't because when I watched some of the YouTube stuff after the fact, like it's just bananas. Like people dragging their bikes off the course with their wheels not even turning anymore.
Yeah, the afternoon race I say had the better conditions too. Like the morning race, what the kids had and what we had was absolute treacherous. After it rains really hard, it's almost better riding in the rain than it is like 5 or 6 hours later, because then that soil starts to tack up and it just sticks to everything. Like it was so slippery and slimy that you couldn't really turn. We didn't have any ruts yet because we were building them. And the top like 6 inches was just the heaviest clay mud ever. And you were basically building your own line up the center of it. And I know a couple of times I was very thankful to be on like a little bit bigger motorcycle, because I just put it in third and let go of the clutch, and just my bike would just carry me to the top of some of these sections where it was just like I know some of that stuff definitely got better throughout the day, and it would have become a lot easier once the big
Sorry, we lost you there for a second. No,
darn,
it's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
It's all good.
So yeah, I mean, huge though. And I mean, that must feel so good after, having to take a year off.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. Coming back from major surgery almost a year ago now, and I remember phoning my dad before I started, and he's asked me how I was feeling. I said, "I feel really good. I just really hope I remember how to ride the mud." Because I haven't rode the mud in a year. And the last time I was riding in the mud, my knees were doing me zero justice. I would try to put my feet out and they just had no strength in them, and, they'd give out, and it was very, very difficult. So I was like, I just really hope, everything I worked for is going to hold me up out there. And they did awesome. I felt great all day. I didn't have any strength issues. I didn't have any issues with my legs giving out, and I feel better on the bike now than I have in quite a few years. So definitely worth it. But as everyone knows, coming back from injury, it's just this big question mark. And with such train as that, it's like I didn't know if my cardio was going to be able to handle that extra, pushing around. My bike had to have been 350 pounds. So you just don't know if you're going to be able to manage that. But yeah, definitely surprised myself. And then it's just a really big motivation and a boost for me because, this is something I have been riding and training for the last 5 years. And it feels like now it's just within grasp, and, I'm right in there with the champion hunt with these girls. And that's just quite a feeling to have.
I mean, amazing. It's surprising, right? Like when you look back and you say 5 years, like I'm sure everyone seems so happy for you across the industry, and rightfully so, which is so cool. But on top of that, I'm sure a lot of people were like, finally, like what took so long? Like it's almost surprising that it took this long for you to get that W.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I haven't committed myself to a GNCC series. It's East Coast based, coming from the West Coast. It's
Yeah.
very difficult. I've been contracted to ride hard enduros and endurocross. So, the last couple years I've only been able to do a handful of rounds. So I've probably, in my whole GNCC experience from the last 5 years, I've probably only done 13 rounds
Yeah.
in total.
Right.
So it's not like I've actually done a ton of races. I've just, you work at it, and then I go change disciplines and then come back and work at it. But it's definitely good motivation to be just riding with these girls and seeing the pace that they're running and how fast, we have to go. And it's just crazy to me that the I feel like I'm going so fast, and then you see these girls will beat me by, like, when I first started racing the series, they beat me by like 7-8 minutes, back in 2020. And it was just like, it was crazy to me. I'm like, how, where,
Mhm.
but now we're starting to catch up. And like I said, it wasn't something I thought I would be able to do, is to get like a W. That's a big statement for me. That's a big highlight of my career. But podium, I think, is always within reach. That third to second place. I've podium snowshoe twice, and that's obviously more technical round. So I knew all that, like, coming in. I just need a little bit worse riding conditions would definitely favor me. But you never know out there. I mean, anything can
Totally.
happen. It is still a 2-hour race, and maintenance, bike maintaining, all that stuff comes into play. So yeah, I was very, very excited to get that one done.
Yeah, that's rad. And I can tell just an excitement in your voice. It's a huge accomplishment. And to boot, like as Noel said, it's, everybody across the industry, even across like in small bike shops, it's a conversation about you taking that win. Today, even I work at a small shop in Southern Alberta. You're familiar with the area, but it's like, your name came up when, Ryan Lockhart was in today having a chat, and, we talked about it. So it's cool. It's made it across right back to where you're from and across the world. So congrats again. It's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually really cool for me to hear. I know just for me alone, it's been my Instagram and stuff has just been kind of crazy going nuts with it. And I was very fortunate to have, FXR Kyle Wolfie getting the
Yeah.
footage of me coming across the line just to see how excited I was. I had a lot of people message me with like that brought tears to my eyes because it just goes to show all the work, the blood, sweat, and tears that I've put into just racing dirt bikes in general and just trying to become better all the time. And then to put that together after coming back from injury, like I'm not even technically cleared by my doctors yet to be back
I was
racing.
gonna
So
ask.
it's one of those things that
Yeah.
it's like he said a year and I came back at 10 months and I've been working so hard. I have a trainer, Melissa Stinson from Lethbridge area. She's been training me and, we've been working hard since like really July, August to be where I'm at now. And it's just, it's those early mornings, it's the late nights, it's the grinding. And I've never had an injury. I've been pretty fortunate in my professional career to I've never really had an injury where it required me to take off any amount of time. So sitting back last year was really, really hard for me. And, it was like to come back after that and just win at the biggest, off-road race in the world is just, it was the next level experience for me. I know my dad and my mom, I phoned them and I was like crying and my mom's crying. She's like, we have to have a party here. And she's in Arizona with her
Aw.
friends. And they phoned me and they all had on my little
Yeah.
championship shirts and Team Canada. And, they're like, we were cheering from you all day from Arizona. And then I had some friends like Felicia messaged me from over in Ontario and a couple of friends on that side. And then, people over on Western Canada, BC, Chantel. So I kind of made it across, the whole country of Canada was pretty proud of me. And that was it was something to see that, a race that big, they all understood how large that is for me and the accomplishment that, I managed to
Yeah,
get.
for sure.
I mean, yeah, it's good to see. I mean, it was a good couple of weeks. Like the rounds 2 and 3 of GNCC were pretty good for Canada.
Yeah, I mean we've been killing it. Hayden Dupuis has been, he's gonna be a guy to
Yeah.
watch. He's really, really fast right now. He's struggling with just keeping bikes together, but I mean I think once they get through these couple of little hiccups, he's a front runner for that XC2, YXC2
Yeah.
class, and yeah, he's been riding really good. It's actually quite crazy to see how fast he is on a super mini. It's really impressive. And then just the whole crew down here. There's not a whole bunch of Canadians and even fewer, Western Canadians where I'm from. So you're it feels like you're more out on your own out here, and everyone out here, it seems like, have been doing the series for so long. They know all the tracks, they know all the little tiny tricks, and we've kind of had to figure it out for ourselves over the past few years. But I think we're really starting to make a statement, and it's really good to see.
We need to figure out like the old school, like back when I was racing GNCCs when I could, the arrive and ride program from Western Canada. That needs to be a thing because I would hands down race that
Yeah.
every weekend if I could, or every other weekend. But it's just so expensive to fly there every 2 weeks when you're working and fly down $1,000, $2,000, come back, $1,000, $2,000, come back. So we need to figure that out. I don't know how without winning the lottery.
Yeah, another arrive and ride program like they had.
That was cool. I remember that I was flying the second year I raced GNCCs. I disassembled the YZ250X and like threw it into 2 hockey duffel bags and sent it on check luggage. And it surprisingly didn't make it. Half of it made it. But when I showed up to the track with 2 duffel bags, this guy's like, dude, what are you doing? You can pay these guys for a arrive and ride. I was like, oh, I guess that would have been a bit smarter.
Yeah. Frick.
If you don't know, how
Yeah.
do you know
Yeah.
though, right? Like you kind of got to get down here, get your feet in, or have somebody who knows, have a friend that knows something, or so, you know what I mean? Like if you don't know, it's especially, I mean, it's a lot easier now with social media and everything going on, but back then it was like a little bit harder to know. Like I was even thinking the opportunities I had, when I was 12, 13 years old versus the opportunities that kids have now. Like we hardly left
Yeah.
Alberta. you just didn't know what was down here. It was the great unknown. Like, you just stayed where you were, and if you heard of a race kind of, you know, anywhere between Alberta and straight south, you know, we got farther south every year, but we didn't really venture east at all. I hadn't even really rode on the East Coast until 2020, and it is so different. The terrain is so flat. They talk about a hill and they're talking about slight inclines in elevation. Like, I think there was maybe 300 feet of elevation on this course, which, like, if it would have it rained 3 inches on Saturday, if it would have rained 3 inches at home on Saturday before a race, you wouldn't be seeing that entire place until the next week. Like, but they managed to, you know, we raced through it. They had to do a lot of course rerouting, and then by the time the big bikes went, the PM bikes went, it was like a pretty decent race course. So it's crazy. It's completely mind blowing to see.
That's funny. I remember I can't remember. I think it was Steel Creek maybe, or one of those ones. But they were like, "Yeah, you got to go check out the hill, you know, before you race it." So we walked the course primarily, anyways. But particularly, I was like, "Okay, walk out." I think I walked like 6 kilometers to get to this hill, and I looked at it and I was like, I don't see it. What am I supposed to be looking at?
Did I take a left where I should have taken a right?
Yeah, it was just like, I eventually got to it. I can't remember what course it is, but where you jump the water gap and then turn right and then just go up that quick little uphill. And I was like, well, where I'm from, it's a mountain usually.
Yeah, and it could take a mile to climb up, you know.
So I was pumped to see that was as technical as the hill I had to overcome when I went, because I'm not much of a technical guy.
Yeah, I think the most technical thing you come across is your weather conditions, and then the amount of people on the course.
Yeah.
Luckily, it was a smaller race because they had forecasted terrible weather, so it was definitely smaller. But like, I know Big Buck, the first round of the year, they used to run the same schedule that they do at every other round. And I think one morning we had like 600-700 bikes out there with us in the morning race on a 9 to 10 mile loop. We were catching people lap 2. Lap 2, mile 2. I remember catching the back end of the people who were just starting their race. And we literally did not stop passing people for the next 2.5 hours.
That's wild.
Or hour and a half, I guess. Like, it was like the rest of the race was just front to back lappers.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a good and a bad problem. Great for race promotions.
Yeah.
Hard for racers.
Yeah. And so it's like one of the main things about coming to GNCC is like learning how to pass people. You know, you go back to Canada and it's like, oh, the lappers were bad. I'm like, dude, you don't even know lappers.
One every 2 kilometers.
Yeah, you follow one guy for a couple of corners. Like, I'm talking, I pass them in clumps, like 6 or 7 in a corner, and you're like, that was a good move. That was a good line.
Oh, man.
Even this weekend, the second lap was easier than the first. The first one, we had to find the water holes and the mud holes, and I remember going into a couple of them and just being like, that's deep, dropping the clutch and just like praying you climb out of it. And then second lap, it was much easier because there were bikes piloning, marking where not to go. They're just standing upright. The rider like pointing you away from the hole.
Do not come over here.
So good.
It's like, this isn't a good line. I'm like, I can see
I've
that.
made bad decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, you felt like you wanted to go right.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have. You should have went left. You should have went to the outside. If you really felt like the line should have been tight, you probably should have been wide.
How much? How's the bike doing? Have you got it kind of fixed up after, or dealt with after that?
Wow. See, that's kind of like the awesome part about my ride right now is I have a mechanic, which is awesome. Enduro engineering napper. He's been awesome. So I have not even seen that motorcycle. I felt really bad for him because I couldn't lift it. I couldn't even lift the rear fender off the ground. I posted a picture on my Instagram. I don't know if you guys went and saw it, but my bike and me look so heavy. My bike must be like 4 inches lower. And it's just a flat straightaway. Like, it was so heavy. But, you know, there's a lot of tricks that they run. Like, we run, I don't know if you guys know what gutter guard is. Have you heard of that?
On the radiator?
you would put it in like your rain gutters. Yeah, so we put that over our rads, and you keep it like really loose, and it collects like the dirt, and then it kind of stops the big pieces from really getting into your rad. So I had that on, and that actually helped a ton. My bike didn't even boil. It ran fantastic start to finish. I was just, I've been around for a while. I've been doing this a lot, so I know not to ride the clutch and not to be, honestly, another weird thing is you can't be too hard on the brakes here either, because you will lose a set of brake pads in an hour and a half if you're using those too much. So it's just kind of like very, very gentle on your controls, just kind of taking it where the bike takes you, and just, yeah, trying to stand up and get traction as much as possible. But yeah, so I haven't seen that poor motorcycle yet. I'm sure it's fine. It was honestly in worse shape after
Yeah, with all
Florida,
that
I would
sand,
say,
and it was
than what
wet
it
there
was after
too
the general.
with the
Mhm.
grit.
Yeah, actually, Florida. I've never rode a wet Florida before, and that sand was awful. I will take dry sand over that any day.
Yeah.
It got so beat up, and the mud holes, I was riding them like I rode in Georgia. I was really taking some great lines, and then I'd get passed right up the center, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's being too cautious through here. So that was a little bit of a bummer. And yeah, that place, it's so hot too. It's like 26, 27 degrees and just 110% humidity. It was just, that place was really, really gnarly. I found that was probably the hardest of the 3 rounds that I've done, is to do Florida. But yeah, so far the bike and everything, my machine has been in good shape. Big weekend for the enduro engineering team. We're just a
Yeah,
privateer
huge with
team, and
Josh. Yeah,
Josh Toth took his
the
first ever.
Yeah.
overall win,
Yeah, he took his first ever
first
win.
ever overall for an
Overall
XC2
did.
bike.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah. Yeah, he was riding really good. Poor Napper, I was in the pits. I helped them, when they come in, we do gas and goggles, and the guys we're pitting next to were like, oh, he's in the lead. You could be the first mechanic to have a quad podium, because, he won the overall, the XC2, and then I was second overall and won the WXC. He was like, it could be a big day for you. And he's sitting over there, he's pacing back and forth. I think I'm going to be sick. The poor guy was
Yeah.
so nervous.
Oh my, yeah, I can't even imagine. Yeah, that was cool. Like on the broadcast, that they were going on about Josh and just, trying to figure out the time gaps, because they don't have a lot of timing checkpoints that they can refer to online, and just trying to like time it off the drone feed, with their watches on their wrist, and it was pretty wild watching that.
Yeah. He's something else. Josh is probably one of the most talented guys I've ever seen on a dirt bike. Like, we've went to different spots just to like test bikes and stuff, and he's just got so much flow and so much like natural ability on a bike. It's like really impressive to watch. And he was actually doing really, really well in Florida. He was ahead of Grant Davis, and he was second overall in Florida that day. And he was ahead of him, and he collided with one of the XC1 guys and actually knocked his clutch out. So he had no clutch. So the last 3 laps, he rode without clutch, and then he finally had to pull out on the last lap because his bike wouldn't move anymore. And that was really heartbreaking, for him, and just to see him come in, and it wasn't his fault, right? It was a racing incident. You come together with someone else, like, wasn't anything really he did or could have done differently. It was just kind of happened. And I figured that would probably light a fire for, the next round. Like, I was like, oh, I think he's going to be one to watch, especially in the mud. He's, very, very technical, good rider and that stuff. And I was like, oh,
Well,
it's one to
I was going to say,
watch. So it's
he's
good
a
to
lot
see.
like you in that he's a really complete multidisciplinary off-road racer. Like it's hard enduro, it's motocross, GNCC, like, throw it at him and he's going to be up there.
Yeah. He even went hill climbing last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gnarly. He's done some stuff, and he did really good at the 6 days
Yeah.
too. I think he might have won the overall for the
Yeah.
clubs. Yeah, he knows what he's doing out there. He's just a lot of fun too. He's serious, but in a fun way. Like, he knows when to be serious and when you can relax and just be be normal. And yeah, it was good. It was good for the team. It's so funny because you're at GNCCs, and if the listeners don't know how big these events are, they have full blown supercross semis, right? Like full blown teams there, and we're pitted in the back 40 out of a pop up tent in a sprinter van, and it's all you need sometimes, I guess, if you have a good day and a little bit of luck's on your side. And yeah, it was definitely a good one.
That's amazing. Yeah, like it is. It's full on, like
Yeah.
you said, it's a supercross pit there. You got the Cowie, you got KTM, who all else there? Like there's a lot of rigs there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
Yamaha, Honda, you have the Beta
Yeah.
rig, and then you got the Rocky Mountain rig,
Sherco,
Landers, KTM. So there's 2 KTMs.
Oh.
Yeah, you have the Sherco tent.
Yeah.
So it's a big. They get 1,000, 2,000 racers, and the parking area alone, how many people they fit into these areas is just, yeah, it's huge. And then they have all the quads on Saturday. And this, I never thought that quads could turn as tight as they do until I started watching GNCC. And these guys ride tighter trails than we do. Like, it's incredible what they go through. Like, everyone who comes down, I'm like, you gotta go watch the quads. You gotta go watch the start and then go watch them go through the trees somewhere, because it's the most gnarly thing ever. Those dudes are just throwing their weight around these things and just going unbelievably fast. And there's so many of them. Like, this is where all the quad riders are.
Yeah.
I swear, they're just riding GNCC.
Yeah, maybe they knew about it from Alberta, and that's why there's none left in Alberta. They just left, went to the GNCCs.
Yeah, they left. Went to the GNCCs, left us the side-by-sides.
They just didn't tell us. They're like, nah, we don't want them to know. We're going to start our own thing and ride the GNCCs.
It's funny. I can just imagine Courtney and Jared, you guys sitting there and hearing just about the parking for that race. And you guys are like, one day.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
Wow. There ain't no place anywhere here that has that much room to park. Except for Shelby's house. That's about it.
Yeah.
Farmland.
Literally, if the place where I live and ride at were to have a GNCC, it would probably be that entire field. That entire half section would just all be like, that's comparable to what it is. It is insane. Yeah. And then at Georgia, we park so far away that I think it takes an hour. It's an hour hike to get to just the pits to go, talk to the pro teams, or just to go get sign-in registration. And it's crazy. Well, and the way they have everything set up, like, they've really thought everything through. Like, you can tell they've been doing it a while. Everything flows smoothly each and every time.
So, I mean, with a few people we've had on the show, it's been new year, new team, and same for you. And I mean, how exciting for Enduro Engineering and Gas that you guys are hammering out these results already so early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Tanner Tremaine, which would be my boss through Gas USA, and I think I'm the first WXC Gas to win. So I'm the first winner on a Gas for the women. So that was just a big ride for me. And making the switch was definitely a little weird. My front fender, it looks very, very strange. I think I've spent 23 years on orange, I think, is what it ended up being. And I basically rode them since the time I was on a 50. I've never really rode anything aside from a KTM. Mind you, Gas essentially is a KTM, but it's a little bit different. I think I have aluminum subframe and a couple of different parts on it. But it was when the Gas deal came through, it was just kind of like a no-brainer to move that way and to join the team with, Josh and Al and everyone at Enduro Engineering, Napper. And it was kind of like an opportunity I couldn't pass up, kind of this late in my career, coming off of an injury. And it was exactly everything I wanted to do. I want to do national enduros. I wanted to do GNCCs. I wanted to hopefully get some Endurocross in, and I wanted to do the ISDE. So, it kind of fit all those things, as my number one series being national enduro this year. And yeah, then we can come do the GNCC, see how all that's going, decide if we want to go do Endurocross, how everything's shaking
Well,
up. But
that's
yeah, so far it's been
and we'll
awesome.
get back to the team, but I mean that's an important point with the first 2 rounds of Endurocross conflicting with ISDE, and last year they had the 1 race drop rule because it conflicted with 1 race. Have you heard anything from the series about if they're going to do a 2 drop rule for the ladies or?
I just heard a couple days ago that has been thrown around because obviously this affects Rachel Gudish
Yeah.
and myself, and me having won the series in the past and Rachel winning it last year. It's kind of like the front runners of the
Yep.
series would potentially have to commit one way or another. And Rachel's Gudish was pretty set on doing the ISDE. So, yeah, I'm not really sure 100% yet. I'm really hoping that they're going to allow us a couple of throwaways to accommodate that. But I mean, obviously, I haven't talked to Todd or anything there. It was just kind of like they threw that around and asked me how I felt about it. And I was like, yeah, I would be definitely down for that. I want to go to Spain. I love the ISDE. I just love punishing myself for 6 days straight.
Don't we all?
Hey, you got new knees. You might as
Yeah.
well really like let's work
Put
'em.
them to the test. Yeah.
Yeah, when they feel awesome though. I honestly I can't believe I was doing even half the stuff I was doing last year. They definitely sucked. That's pretty much
I
the only
I
way I
just
can
remember
explain it.
you at seeing you at the spring series here in Calgary at Wild Rose Motocross, and you were like just I think that was post surgery at that point, but you were hobbling in, and I was just like, wow, like how are you even like walking?
Yeah, I had an amazing surgeon, a good team there at the BAMP
Yeah,
Sports Medicine Clinic, and there's, the surgeon's a lot, but I think there's a lot to do with how you treat your injuries too. Like you can, choose to sit back and hopefully it works, or you can force through the pain every day and just try your hardest with your physio and manage all that to get back to where you want to be. And I just wanted to be better. Like I wanted to be back. I wanted to race. Heck, I wanted to walk, like I couldn't
yeah,
even walk
yeah.
on gravel before. And I wanted my quality of life back, and I wanted to continue racing and being at the highest level I could be at. And I got, after the first 2 weeks were done, I got the physio. I started physio, and I did physio 4 times a day. I just all the time I could, every time I was able to, and whatever, I was just trying to do what they said I should be doing. So it was like at that point in time, it's such little movements that you don't really even know that they're doing anything. I mean, I think Courtney, you've been through a knee surgery, so you could probably
Totally.
like know what I mean by like you do like the smallest thing, and then next thing you know, it turns out like the next day you're doing it twice
Yeah.
as good. And then so it was like that really kept me motivated, because if I couldn't do something one day, I would sleep on it and I could do it better the next day. So I really stuck to the physio. And when I could, as soon as I was cleared to go to the pool, I started in the swim pool. And I couldn't swim by any means. I was just walking. Like I literally just walked back and forth. Like the people in the swimming pool would just stare at me and be like, "What are you doing?" Because I'm just walking back and forth in the deep end, up to my neck in water, because the water takes the weight off. And that's how I had to relearn, having both knees done. I had to relearn how to do absolutely everything. Like I had to relearn how to jump, I had to relearn how to ride the bike, I had to relearn how to walk, I had to relearn like little things, like even just standing in a triple threat position, like your feet apart, like in the
Yeah.
whatever. Like I had to relearn absolutely everything. And it was just like jumping, all that was so much work to start with. And then I just really slowly had to come around and get back into all that. And my poor legs had atrophied so much from the lack of movement. And yeah, it was a long recovery process for sure.
I mean, even for just getting back on the bike 10 minutes later, that's pretty impressive. That was awesome to see.
Yeah, that was I waited out as long as I could. I told my surgeon, I was like, when I went in for my 6 month checkup, I was like, so the series starts at 10 months. And I remember him looking at me and was like, are you gonna be careful? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, you're not gonna do any unnecessary racing? Like, and I was like, no. And he was like, be careful. And I was like, okay, and then I got back on the bike at 9 months. So I got back January 1st was basically my first day back, and it was like, honestly, it was kind of like learning how to walk again. Like the first time I rode, I couldn't believe how heavy my gear was, how heavy my boots
Yeah.
were. Like, it's crazy the stuff you take for granted, like, but it came back pretty fast, within a couple of weeks. The muscle memory showed back up and I started making some big progress, but it was nerve-wracking at first too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely nerve-wracking. And did you find that both healed at the same pace, or was one more harder to repair and recover from than the other?
Yeah, no. Both of mine were completely different stages. My right knee was my nice, very good. Everything went easy. It got moving right away. It didn't really bother me. And then my left knee, I called it the problem child
Yeah.
because it was literally the main focus at physio for months. It took me 5 months to be able to fully fire my
Wow.
quad muscle because it would just
Totally.
like to go and straighten my leg to get it to like extend straight. It would just get to a certain point and just not go any farther. And if I use my other foot, I
Yeah.
could get it straight. I could get my leg straight, but like to actually fire my quad muscle to pull my leg straight took 5
Yeah.
months. I remember I was September 3rd the first time it finally did it, and I wrote it down. I was like,
It's
oh
September 3rd.
my gosh, my leg just
Yeah.
started working
Know
today.
exactly what you mean.
Oh, brutal. I mean, and then, when I saw you at Endurocross, you were, you did a great job there announcing this year. For people who didn't watch, didn't watch the series, number one, you should have. It was amazing. And number two, yeah, Shelby, you killed it as an announcer. Like,
That was awesome. Bet you that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. I called it I guess a little bit of a hidden talent. They phoned me in like September and asked if I would be interested in doing the announcing for the TV, and I was like, that sounds like a lot of fun. That just sounds like it'd be good to get off the farm. It would be good to just get out, see my friends again. I have a lot of people that I know at Endurocross, and I think it'd be a lot of fun and be a good way to stay involved with the series. And obviously, I have a lot of passion, and I know that sport really well. Like, I know the obstacles, I know the riders, so it was kind of like a no-brainer. I was like, yeah, I'll try that. We'll see how that goes. And then when they told me that my co-host was going to be Phil Smodgy, I was super excited. I didn't actually know him, but his wife used to race against my mom back
Oh.
in the day, Sarah Whitmore. So my mom was like, "Oh, that's so cool." And then obviously we saw Phil and, his tragic accident. Like, we were watching live when he overjumped the UTV and broke his back, and I've kind of followed his cat videos and all that stuff, so I was super excited. And Todd, when I've introduced us through text message or whatever, and was like, would you guys mind carpooling like to some of the rounds or whatever? And I was like, yeah, no problem. So I got the first rental car, and Phil flew in like an hour after I did. And I remember he jumped in the car and just started talking like we'd been long lost best friends. And it was just so easy to get along with him, and his knowledge and experience in endurocross, and coming from a trials background. And yeah, it was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
well,
It
and
was a good
even
time.
behind the scenes, like, I saw you guys out, before and after some rounds, like just staying in same hotels and stuff and seeing you guys in the restaurants after races or, the day before. And I'm shocked that you guys didn't know each other. It's like you said, you guys were like,
Yeah,
did we
it's
just become best friends like right away? Like, I would have had no idea.
yeah, right away
That's
we're
funny. Like, I'm
yeah.
shocked.
I was and it's so funny because we have a Snapchat streak going. Like I snap him every day. Like he snaps me back. Like we're still in contact, and he congratulated me on my win at the GNCC, and we check in, and it's funny because we had never met each other. We knew who we were, but we had never. Yeah, but I just remember he jumped in the car that day.
Yeah.
I was like,
And
oh wow,
and what a first
very, very much
what a first
similar.
round too, because for you as an announcer in Everett, I think it was Everett was the first round. I mean, you had the craziness with Tristan taking himself out a little bit in the first moto, and just even that tire mountain, I forget what you called it, your name for it, for the obstacle where everyone got stuck.
the,
It was just like incredible.
the
Yeah,
over the
the over the
bars
bars
tire.
tire feature. Yeah. That was amazing.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of interesting things. I basically signed on to doing this TV thing with absolutely zero idea what I was getting into. Like I had no clue. Like I would say I had negative clue on what was going to happen, how it was going to be, how it was ran. Like I was so blind, which was awesome because I had no stress. Like poor Phil was so stressed. He was like, I'm nervous. He was like, worried about it. He's like, where are we going to be at? He was like trying to get a feel. Like he's never done TV, but he kind of has a very good grasp at how it should be and what it should look like, where I had none. So I was like, oh, what are you worried about? Like, I don't know. And then after round 1 was done, I looked at him and was like, I get it. I get why you were a little bit stressed out, because there's a lot here. Like we have 2 big TV screens, right? We have one screen that has 4 live feed cameras, and then we have one screen that's showing what everyone else is seeing. But the one that everyone else is seeing is 3 seconds delayed. So if we were calling off of that one, it was already happened. Like we were late. So we had to watch the track and watch these other 4 screens, but no one really told us which ones to look at, which ones was going to happen. So we were completely blind. Like I had no idea. And then they would count us in and count us out. And then they would be like, all right, you guys are going to talk now. And we'd just be like, and then one of us would just start talking, and then he would stop talking and I would start talking. Like everyone's like, oh, you haven't done this before? I'm like, I had no idea what I was doing when I showed up for
It's
this. So
shocking.
yeah, it was definitely
You did amazing.
something.
Like it's shocking that it just works. You're good at it.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I can just talk a lot about
Yeah.
Endurocross, about obstacles.
Oh man, Courtney, what else did you want to get into a little bit?
Well, kind of back on the topic of 6 days. I mean, sounds like you are going this year if all works out with not interfering with Endurocross. But I mean, obviously it's something I've been wanting to do for quite some time, and now coming back from injury myself and getting back into riding, I wanted to know if you had some words of wisdom and advice for women competitors wanting to do it for their first go round.
Yeah, I think the biggest words of advice that I can say is just ride as much as possible and everything. The train is forever changing, and so many things can happen, but I mean, it's so much. I don't know what Argentina was like, but I know it was hot, and I'm sure there was a lot of long miles and long days because I have been to Argentina before. But when we were in France, we had some of the longest days out on a bike ever, like 6-7 hours of transfer
Yeah.
trails and riding. And I think that's super important. But the other thing is, I think maybe one of the reasons why we struggle a little bit in Canada, which is kind of why I'm super happy about you guys starting your series, is we don't really have anything that simulates timing and wide open speed like the 6 days, aside from your guys' series and maybe the corduroy. But the corduroy is still maybe a little bit technical and a little bit tight for what an ISDE would be, because you have to get 2,000 riders through multiple times, so it have to be bigger, wider, whatever. But I just think the biggest thing the biggest thing you can practice is just corner speed and flat track. If you can get really good at your flat track and corners, that's kind of like the best thing for the 6 days. And I do everything on a stopwatch. Even when I'm down here, when I was riding in Arizona, I ride with a watch and I lap time everything. So it just helps keep you motivated to ride. And not only that, you just really see improvement. You can go out. I know when I first started riding a track in Arizona, I set my watch and I wrote down my time. And then the last day I was in Arizona, I did another lap time on it and I was 3 minutes faster than my first
That's
day.
unreal. Yeah.
So just times like that. Yeah. But you wouldn't know that. I wouldn't have known that. And I wouldn't have been happy with where I was at had I not known those
Yeah.
stats. And then I also had rode that exact same track the year before, right before I tore my left ACL, and I was 6 seconds faster than that day so I was already moving faster than what I was the year before. So it's just one of the sneakiest things you can do, and everyone out here does it, is just always make sure you keep that stopwatch on to match those times, to watch the times, and just it's all flat track practice. As Jared knows, the faster you can corner, the better time you have at a 6 days.
Well,
So
it's nice in Medicine Hat. We have a nice flat track and dry, dusty conditions. So we'll keep adding that data, and it's nice that we can always do sprint laps and time each other. And having a good coach really helps too.
yeah, definitely having someone to ride with that's of similar speed or maybe even just a little bit faster always helps too, right? You want to catch them, you want to try and beat them or match them or get closer to them. And yeah, that's always a good training tool that we use a lot down here. It's kind of nice because when Kevin Dupuis gets down, we're pretty close, so we can go out there and match times. And then Tom is not too far off either, so the three of us can get out there and get riding together and kind of pushing everybody
That's
along.
awesome.
So makes it a lot
Yeah.
more fun.
That's cool. I remember actually, speaking of France, we were talking before we went to France, because I think that was the first 6 days that you and I had been to since I'd come back from my hiatus. And I remember you talking about just with adding or doing the sprint enduro stuff in the States, what certain things you were starting to add to your technique or how much you were paying attention to your technique. And that's, do you remember what those things were exactly we were talking about? Like which ones they were that helped you the most?
It was probably something to do with my cornering, taking wider, more flowy
Mhm.
corners. And then the other one probably was something to do with like throttle control and maybe even just keeping your elbows up higher than what I always
Mhm.
want to.
I think that was yeah, if I remember correctly, it's the kind of almost the exaggerated elbow position. Like it's funny. We were just practicing last night again. It kind of looks silly when you're not used to it, right? It's like you're really trying to exaggerate that technique, but it's wild how much just a good technique helps drop time off your. It may not feel faster, but it just adds that little bit, and over time, when it becomes natural, it just drops off big time.
Yeah, I think the biggest change for me since coming, out east to ride and doing more 6 days and stuff is literally line choice and those really wide flowy lines, knowing when and where to cut into the inside. And then honestly, it's keeping your eyes up
Mm.
too. If you can look up and know that the next corner is going to be a left or a right, and you kind of have to set up like a corner before for some of these other corners. And that was a big game changer. Even for the mud this weekend, I was looking up past the section to see kind of which way the track was going, so that you didn't end up way too far to the left or way too far to the right of the track and then just have to come all the way back. So I think that even that, the elbow technique, and then just understanding corners, and then just looking so far ahead, especially at a 6 day. We walk all the tests, but they're pretty
Yeah,
much blind. It's like the weirdest thing.
and you're going WFO into these corners, and I'm like, I
Mhm.
think I walked this. I'm like, yeah, it's a left, right, right, and then I come over and it's a right, left. I'm like, oh shit, back on track. I don't
Yeah.
understand how they memorize it.
That's those. Well, we were sitting there. Remember when we got done walking one of the tests in France? I remember we were walking back, and I think it was the Sweden team. There was a guy standing there, eyes closed, and he was telling he was walking the whole group through. He was like left, right, straight, big uphill, 4 trees, around a corner, big route, down, left, right, and I was just like,
Yeah.
that is the most impressive thing I've ever seen, because these are miles
Yeah.
long. They're like 8-9 mile long tests.
And there's like 20 of them.
Yeah, and like we're in some random day 5, and he's just, reciting the
Yeah.
course. It was so crazy. And I have a terrible memory, so I have to be a little smarter with my riding. I have to look farther ahead and just make sure I'm set up a little bit better. But I try and remember, I don't know if you were doing this, but like specific things that would be detrimental if you miss. Like I remember we put a
Yeah.
solo cup on that one fence post, because if you blew that corner, you were falling off like a 30-foot
I do.
cliff.
I'll probably never forget it.
Yeah, me either. I still know exactly where it was in the course. I could tell you exactly how we got there, what it was like, and then like a little bit after that. But the rest of the course, I don't remember anything about
that,
it.
and I remember the finish line of that test, and that was it. A little double up, and that's it. The rest of it's gone.
Yeah, and then out. And that was really close to our Airbnb. That was like literally looking at, like, we could stand on the porch of our Airbnb and see that test. It was so close to us.
We literally could have walked it 45 times. But
yeah, but I only saw it once.
we called it the Red Solo Cup test, and that's how I remembered it from there on forth. And I'm really happy I decided to eat my breakfast there, because that's what was inside that cup.
Yep. And I'm sure every other country saw that the Red Solo Cup was there and left it there for a reason, because it did not move the whole time.
I've always thought that there's a technique with, you know how like you walk a special test at 6 days and there's always water bottles or Gatorade bottles and they pinch them into the flag tape? I'm like, there's got to be a reason. I walked through like 3 years of tests. I'm like, oh, that's considerate. Instead of putting it on the ground, they're putting it there. I'm like, maybe it's secret code.
Yeah, breaking point.
Yeah, Gatorades are left corners, water bottles are right corners.
Maybe.
That or they just are not throwing it on the ground and actually are being considerate. That could be it.
Yeah, and we would have to have way more pockets too, because we always have some of the smallest teams. So I don't know where you would pack all of that. Like, I have a hard enough time carrying water.
Yeah. It's all right. Maybe we should do like a Canadian themed. Like we'll sit in like a bobsleigh formation after we walk the test, and we all can sit in a line and go left, right, left, left.
Have a new person leading every time. This is your test to remember.
You guys would be like at night at the hotels or whatever and just chanting.
Yeah. But yeah, there is something to putting out some stuff, because I remember like Argentina, there was no real good markers. I don't remember any of the tests. Like I could not sit here today and tell you anything. But in France, when we all walked together and we like pointed those things out, like I still to this day remember those tests. But Argentina, like when we had Rachel on at the first one, she's like, "You remember this test? We went left, we went right. There's that sketchy cliff and this," and I was like, "No, I don't. I don't remember anything."
You're like, I actually blocked that part of my life
Traumatic
out.
events gone.
That was pretty much exactly what he said. Like, no, I've expunged that. You know. Oh, so
I don't want that in my memory.
That's awesome. So where does it stand with the new team in enduro engineering? Do they have a preference of Endurocross over ISDE, or are they leaving that up to you?
I think the preference would always be Endurocross for them. It's for 6 days for me is it's not like going to the 6 days on Team USA when they're chosen and they get bikes built and it's a paid trip and no series except for Endurocross. It was supposed to put any events on in October.
Yeah.
So it's just such a different vibe versus
Oh,
USA
yeah.
versus Canada. But I think I would have been, I really want to go to 6 days, but at the same time, I mean, my season right now is at 26 or 27
Yeah.
rounds. That's 27 weekends. That's over
It's
half a
massive.
year
And
racing.
living on the East
So
Coast a
that's
lot.
a lot. Yeah, I'm only out here right now because the schedule, a lot of the GNCCs are raced from now until June, and then they have a 2-3 month break, and then there's like 4 rounds between,
Yeah.
September to November. But right now they get 9 of them in. And then you have basically one national enduro a month, which isn't too bad. And then the Endurocross is just all of
Yeah.
October basically. So it's a little bit, it's heavy right now just because there's so many GNCCs, but once June hits, July, August, September, October, it's good. And then October, obviously I'm West Coast, so I'm able to come home and whatever, so that's definitely not as bad. But like the first couple months, I would say, what is it, end of February until June is definitely, there's a lot of racing, and that's just why I stay out here that long. It's just, it would be expensive and kind of pointless to drive back and forth to
Yeah.
Canada all the time
Are you going to be doing any of the? Yeah.
or fly.
Totally. Exactly. Are you going to be doing any of the US Sprint Series rounds?
Probably not. Like I said, I'm not really cleared
Fair.
from the doctor yet. So I'm trying to listen and not do anything extra that wasn't already in my plan this year. In the plan wasn't to do any US Sprint Enduros, but those are really fun. I loved doing that series. It just made the first part of the year a lot more stressful because they were pretty much done by June. So they had their 8 or 9 rounds done by June. So along with all the 9 rounds of GNCC and 2 or 3 rounds of National Enduro, it's pretty much every single weekend when I was doing that series. But I mean, last year, even with pulling out a little bit early, I still managed to secure a 3rd overall in the US Sprint Series, so I was pretty happy about that.
Oh, yeah, amazing.
So back in probably August or September, Al from Enduro Engineering phoned me and basically wanted to know if I'd be interested in racing for them next year. Mackenzie Tricker, who was their previous female racer, retired, and they were looking to put someone else on their roster to kind of fill her shoes. And at that point in time, was really up in the air with what anything was going to be like, how my recovery was going. And I definitely told him that I would be very, very interested in joining a team. I haven't been on a team before where I've had a mechanic and someone drive my bikes around with that level of support. And so I was kind of a little bit hesitant, but everything kind of fell together in October. And then they actually, when I was talking to Al, they had already been a gas team prior to that. And they were kind of doing a little bit of restructuring at KTM, the way they did their support riders. And they were bringing Brandy over to the GNCCs. They were moving Corey onto Husky. And they had Rachel Gudish at that time on gas. And they already had Enduro Engineering as a gas team from the year before. So they just kind of thought it would be an easy transition for me to just go gas as well. So that's kind of how the whole gas thing came about and the Enduro Engineering. But yeah, they contacted me something like August of last year, but I had already worked with Al for the last 2-3 years running, their parts and their handguards and stuff. And we had talked previously about joining his team or working something out. So I was just happy that this year everything came together, and yeah, so far it's been really awesome, and they were so
Oh
excited
yeah.
after the weekend. They put some stuff in Cycle News, and they were very excited. I actually just got a video. They were celebrating today with ice cream and pizza at the shop. So yeah, everybody's just been stoked with how the weekend went, and yeah, everything coming together nicely.
So cool. I mean, yeah, they've got to be. Yeah, I can't even imagine how stoked they are right now.
Yeah, definitely a big day for the
little team that
team,
could.
and yeah, it's so unexpected. Like I said, with having those big factory teams, and yeah, we're just the little guys in the corner kind of thing. But yeah, I know I'm a very, very technical rider, and mud's never really scared me. And yeah, it was just a good day at the
Yeah.
GNCC.
I have a thought here, like with coming from where you are, and I guess for the listeners, we never really did a intro on who Shelby Turner is and where she's from, and for being from smaller towns in Canada and in Canada itself, you're bound to get to a level, or when you're trying to get to the level that you've made it to in racing, there's tons of roadblocks and lots of not unmotivating things. Like a lot of people walk away from the goals when they hit those roadblocks along the way. So what were some of those? And to me, from my point of view, looking in and knowing you a little bit, you were just never willing to accept what was being given, or what the non possibilities of things. You were just unwilling to accept it. Is how I looked at it. And yeah, maybe can you share on what sort of things you got thrown your way coming from that, and how you ultimately got to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in, southern Alberta, there wasn't even really a kids series that we could necessarily ride back when I was a kid. There was motocross. I started motocross when I was younger, and we rode that when I was on 50s. And then my dad and mom got into the off-road. My mom was the Alberta off-road manager for quite a few years, and was a big part of that AMSA series and stuff back in the day when my brother and I were coming through the ranks. And I never considered myself, you know, to be I never thought I would make it as far as I did, and I never just said no to myself like I couldn't do anything. I never considered myself to be done at any point. I always had a mindset and a goal of I just want to be better. From the time I was little, I just wanted to ride. It was all about chasing my brother, who was probably one of the biggest motivators for me. I always wanted to beat him. I wanted to be as good as him. I wanted to do exactly what he was doing, and I just chased him. And we had the kids series that my mom kind of brought together, and I just raced my way through those rankings. And then I was also still racing motocross, and I never just raced one thing. I would always race anything and everything, and anything to do with dirt bikes. I just loved it. I always wanted to ride. I always wanted to race. Didn't matter how hard, how easy, what I was doing. I was just always down for it. And I didn't really even know that that was kind of grooming me to be like even an ISDE rider and all the other things. I didn't know that there would ever be an end goal. Like my dad used to tell me, like, you can race for as long as you want, but no girls ever make a living at it. So, I mean, just, it's not like it's not possible, but there wasn't the factory rides there. There wasn't those sort of things when I was first, getting started. There was no breakthrough person that's like, yeah, they did it, we can do it. Like it was so different back then. And so, I got out of school, and then I went to the 6 days. And you come from a small town, you come from a small area, and like I said before, you only race Alberta, BC, you race south, the America. Like I ran into Brandy Richards when I was a kid, but you don't really pay much attention. Like, you're just a kid, you just love dirt bikes. I just loved riding. And And then the biggest thing I had was like when I showed up to the very first 6 days and the Australian girls absolutely laid the boots to me. I just could not
Yeah.
believe it. Like Jessica Gardner beat me by over 12 minutes. And I was like, how is this even possible? Like, how are they riding this good? And then Taylor Jones just destroyed me. And then you had Gemma Wilson, who was just incredibly fast. All of them Australians. And I was like,
Mhm.
whoa, it was just like, I was so surprised that there was a level that I hadn't even thought was
Yeah.
there. And that was probably one of the biggest motivators for me. I was 18 at the time and went to the 6 days because they were looking for a team and it was just starting to get popular and they just had introduced the women's trophies not too long before that. And we went with a really good team that year, Lexi and Felice, and it was like that was probably the eye opener for my career. I'd seen the fast motocross women, and obviously we had a really good series back then, even the East to West, and I'd won that already. I won that at 14, and I'd kind of done everything I thought I could do in Canada, and I wasn't really big on doing the works. I didn't really like riding in the desert that much. So to see, like I said, to go over to that 6 days and just that whole mindset that I had, I was just completely
Mhm.
wrong. Like these girls are killing it, and so that's when I just started putting my head down and trying to work hard on just technique and speed. And since then I've probably changed my riding style up 4 or 5 times, like substantially. And I watched Taylor go from winning the ISDE to winning GNCCs, and then that's kind of when I started really noticing the GNCCs. I was like, man, these girls in the States racing the GNCCs, like that stuff looks gnarly. I want to go do that someday. Like the muddier ones, the more technical stuff. And then, we always had the Endurocross, which I love doing, and we had the X Games, and so everything just kind of happens as it is, and I never really had a set direction in my mind where I wanted to
Mhm.
go. Like I was racing the motocross, and then I was doing the ISDE, and I wanted to get better at the 6 days, and then X Games came along, and I was trying to do X Games and race Endurocross, and then it was just like everything was just kind of all happening at once, and I always felt like I was just a little bit behind the 8 ball, like when they did the global X Games, and I missed kind of that opportunity to go do the stuff with Chantel by Kirk and stuff. I was always a little bummed I never got to go do that. And then I only did 3 years of the X Games, but I remember there's certain things in your career that happen to you that are in a race or whatever that just completely change your mindset. And I had an incident at X Games where I'd gotten falsely penalized, and it kind of went through, and we had video footage of what actually happened, didn't happen, but it had already went through. And moral of the story is my dad was just like, well, you kind of got 2 options. You can get better and beat them and make sure that this never happens, or you could pack it in and call it a career of racing and just be where this is, as far as you'll get. Like, he's like, you could do whatever, you can take this any way you want, but if you want to not have this happen, you have to be so good that it won't
Right.
happen. So that was the path that I chose, right? Like certain things happen, like while I was racing through the years, that just really motivated me. So that's when I went on my Endurocross rampage. I just breathed Endurocross for 6 years. I just rode it at home, raced it, practiced it, trained it until I got so good that there was just like there would never be a discrepancy. Like I was always on the course. I didn't crash. I didn't make mistakes. Like that's just where I wanted to be. And it was the same thing when I was at the 6 days when I was 18, and I was like, these girls are so fast. I want to be as fast as them one day. Like I just could not believe they were that fast, and just started working towards being better. And actually, I have a goal that I still haven't reached. I really want a podium in
Mhm.
ISDE, and I was 45 seconds off in
Yeah.
France. And I think Jared knows I was pretty
Yep.
bummed about that. It was like, and I think it worked out to being 3 minutes from overall. So to see, and the best part is I beat Jessica Gardner by 45 seconds, which, as I said, in 2013, Jessica beat me by 10
Crazy.
minutes. So there's just stepping stones in my career, certain things and challenges that have just came up that I've just been like, that no way, I'm not, quitting. I'm not ready to roll over yet. I can be that good. I can work as hard as the other girls and get to that next level. And kind of the same thing with when I came to the GNCCs. I showed up at the first one and I got beat by 7 minutes or something by Becca Sheets, I think. And I was like, how?
7
Like,
minutes.
I was already 20. This was like in 2020. I was like, how in a head-to-head style race, like, I'm like, okay, I need to get better at this. So then I've just been, I'm always switching directions and focusing, and just, it's always surprising the things that pop up, and you're just like, and honestly, the biggest challenge when I was growing up that we don't really have now is the lack of social media. You just didn't know what people were doing, where the training facilities were. Like, you just couldn't see all that. So we kind of, now it's just much easier to, even with Google Maps, to just head down to South
Yeah.
Carolina and Google where you're going, and there you are. Like, we would have never taken a trip over here 10 years ago. Like, you just wouldn't do it. It would, unless you knew somebody who was from that
Yeah.
area. So that's always been, looking back, I'm like, man, it would have been nice to be, a kid back then. But all in all, it made me who I am today. And, growing up, I never had new tires on my bike. I never had new bikes. I had one bike a year, and the fork steel stopped leaking when it just stopped leaking, which now I know is probably when it
Yeah.
ran out of oil. But, you just rode. I just rode. I didn't care. Nothing bothered me. My dad and mom used to tell me, yeah, but just wait until one day when you get all the stuff you need, you're going to be that much faster.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, like, that was always like my motivation. Like, the positive side is, when you get this someday, Shelby, it's going to be great. And, I think that's kind of one thing I always take away, is like how much I struggled when I was a kid with all that stuff. And then now it just comes easily. And, I always have new tires on my bike, and I have bikes that are, great suspension on them, and everything's always ready to go. So, I'm super grateful with how all that turned out. But if I didn't have those hardships when I was a kid, I definitely wouldn't be the tough, stubborn person that I am today, especially when I get out on the racetrack and someone beats me by that much. It's like a step back. I'm like, wow, there's another level here that we need
That's
to
awesome.
find.
Crazy.
That's so cool. So yeah, just, you don't see it as a not a possibility, and that keeps you going. So that's wicked. So for all these,
Yeah, it's just,
yeah,
yeah.
for everybody listening, that's what you want. Just keep, every time you see it, new goal, new goal, new goal. Don't get deflated. That's the
Love
motto.
it.
I don't think I have ever had goals that were, like, I never set a goal that was so unrealistic too. Like, my stuff always comes when you didn't really even know you were pushing
Right.
for it. Like, my first ISDE goal, goal was, I wanted to finish. And then I got a gold medal, and I was like, wow, that was crazy. But I was just barely, like, I was just in
Yeah.
the time. And I was like, my next one I went to, my goal was to beat one of those Australians. They were so fast. I was like, if I could just, I remember telling my mom and dad, I'm like, if I could just beat one of them, that would be amazing. And then 2 years later, I was battling, after Argentina, the year after, I was battling with Gemma. And then, I was like, oh, my next goal is, like, I want to beat, two of the Aussie girls, or, this one girl, like, the France or the American team. You just start setting these little tiny goals for yourself. And every year you just kind of working your way up. But I've always wanted to just podium one of those individually. And I think that would be probably another career highlight for me, because I've been working for 10 years to try and do that. And it's hard, man. As you know, the the 6 days is just insane. There's so much that can happen. Like, just put
Yep.
riding aside. It's just like,
Yeah.
whew,
You can do
Crazy.
it though. You must.
yes. We gotta get that one. We gotta get that one
That's a
wrapped up. We
huge
can
one.
do it.
Yeah.
Definitely
What
know.
about
So
in?
so
I was
go
just
ahead.
gonna say, what about Enduro GP?
You know, it's funny. That's come up a couple of different times, and I haven't really had this huge desire to go do any Enduro GPs. I think when I kind of shifted career focuses from Endurocross to GNCCs and made the whole life change to come out here and ride and do that, I think that kind of overpowered the Enduro GP side. But I was still getting my fill of the European riding because I was doing 6 days. So I've never really wanted to go and do an Enduro GP necessarily, which kind of sounds funny, but I'm like, oh, I've always been very satisfied with what I'm
Fair.
doing currently.
2013 was your first year 6 days, yeah?
Yeah.
If that team reassembled, what would be the goal?
Oh, we for sure have to get on the podium as a team. Canada can do this.
100%.
I agree.
We can do this. I know with the Lexi can roll, and we know Felicia's got the heart to be able to, put it together. And I think we could have a serious contender team, especially if you get us in a situation where it comes down to pure grit and determination, kind of like what I would say Argentina was. Like, a lot of those teams lost riders. If we could keep the whole team Canada together, which I think we can, because we are some of the gnarliest racers out there. We are definitely known for our technical abilities and just, sticking it out through thick and thin. So I think I think we could have a really good shot at landing on the podium again. We did it in Argentina in
That's right.
2014, and that was a huge accomplishment. And I really thought that Team Canada could do it another couple of times, but that's gotten a lot harder. The countries started
Yeah.
showing up, like after 2014, 2015, kind of 2016 on, they've really stepped up their game everywhere. I mean, the American program is insane. Brandy Richards is hands down one of the fastest female racers ever. Like, even out here, it's just impressive to watch her
Such an animal.
ride.
Yeah.
And Corey Steed is so fast, Gudish is so fast, and then you have the whole Aussie team, which I've always had to fight against the Aussies, and they're so fast, and so much respect for them. And it's tough, but that's exactly what we want. We need these girls to show up. We need these countries to show up if we want the sport to grow and to be bigger and get recognized, and make all this happen. You gotta have the teams there. You gotta have the women who make it that special to be there.
Well, it'd be cool if you guys could put the band back together here in Europe this year. Just gonna say,
Agreed.
hopefully it works out with
Yeah,
Endurocross.
that would be cool.
And everyone's gonna be a European round. Everyone's
Yeah.
gonna be there.
We could make T-shirts
Yeah,
saying the band's back.
Be better.
Yeah.
Like, pay for your full 6 days trip.
The band's back.
The girls are back in town.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'll have to get hopefully they can let me know right away what Endurocross is going to do, so I can, start doing some riding schools and some fundraising
Yeah.
and stuff, because that's a big part of our program for Canada to allow us to go. Is we got to do a lot of footwork for it. But I mean, I'm always down to do that.
Yeah, if you're around in July, we're gonna do a 6 days fundraising camp the week before our last round, before we finish off for the year. So if you're around for that and be a part of it, there'd be some good opportunity there.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have to look into the dates and see how everything rolls. I told you my schedule is really, really crazy this year, and obviously I'm in South Carolina right now, which makes it harder. We already had a time change discrepancy today with the time this podcast was starting.
Yeah, for the listeners, Shelby messaged me at about 4:20 Mountain Time saying, like, "Hey, I'm in." I'm like, "Oh, No, like no, 6 o'clock Eastern or Mountain, not 4 o'clock. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna take the hit on that. Like, I feel like an
Come on,
idiot.
Noel.
Yeah, do better.
It's all good. No, when we originally planned
Yeah.
it for Thursday, we had it very clear, and then when we replanned
Yeah, we
Got
replanned
messy.
it for Tuesday, and
I
then we
should know you
replanned
guys
it
are from
again.
Alberta.
So, yeah, all right. Well, no, that's still a do better for me.
I mean,
It's all
all I
good.
got to do is show up and talk, Noel. Come on.
Yeah. You're the man. Yeah.
Me too. It was funny because I was out riding with Grant Baylor and Brooke Cosner today, and I was telling Tom, I'm like, I gotta get back. And then they were like, oh, never mind, it's at 8.
Yeah.
I have plenty of time.
Well, look, thanks again. It was awesome seeing you. Looking forward to seeing some more of you. I can't wait to try and get down to at least a couple of GNCC rounds. And certainly, whatever Endurocross I can get to, outside of being in Spain for ISDE. So, I'm stoked to see more of you and see you riding this year, and really fired up for it. Way to go.
Perfect. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks,
Hey,
guys.
have a good night. Go to bed. It's late on the East Coast, South Carolina. Get that sleep.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Shelby.
All right.
Thank you so much.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Bye.